Who, they have family out there? Or they just get a sitter? Or maybe they have nannies?
They might have
nannies.
They might have a nanny?
Get the fuck out of here. These are some highfalutin folk you associate with. Was asking me all about this. He's like, what's going on in this shirt? And he's like, what is this? And I'm like, it's a lady and she's scared. Is it scary? I said, it's a movie. Watch it on TV just like before. And I said, no. No. I said, Daddy watches scary movies. Sometimes he watches them with Justin. And Diego's like, scary movies? And I said, yeah. You watch them? I said, yeah. Oh, and then every time he would look at my shirt, he'd go, oh, like that. And I'd go, oh, like right back at him.
Like, so we're doing a thing now.
Well, I told him, I said, when we watch scary movies, we get stronger like that. So at the end, he goes, at the end of the night, I'm putting him to bed and he goes, Daddy's strong. I was like, oh, if only you knew, son. It's called Tisdale.
Very nice.
Kept it in the fridge for a little while. It's a Pinot Grigio. It's got a sweet. It's a Californian. Very, like I said, very inexpensive. I drank a couple of the Tisdale wines because they're low end, but they're not the lowest end.
Right.
So they're on the bottom shelf. So I feel a little self-conscious when I walk down the wine aisle because I'm always looking a little low. So I'm always like.
You just act like you're checking out your shoes, like just making sure everything's tied and in place. 100%. And oh, look at that! There's something with a kangaroo on the bottle. Let me just grab that real quick. Oh, look, there's monkey wine. Oh, look, there's a 47-pound rooster.
There's a barefoot. That sounds delightful.
That does sound delightful.
So this is, I would say, this is a step up from the monkey. The barefoot, the Australian that the kangaroo. Is it a kangaroo that's on the Australian one?
Yeah.
What's it called? Yellowtail.
Yeah, yellowtail.
Yeah, yellowtail. Yeah. So it's above them in my estimation. But it's funny because like the Pinot Gris can be like great, and this is like crisp and it's just fantastic for summer, which makes since we're in third summer here in New England.
Right, it keeps rotating into it. Yeah.
It's like 30 degrees at night and 80 degrees in the day. Like, what the fuck is going on? Are we in the desert?
Yeah,
what is going on? I do like this one. I like their Pinot Noir as well. But their Pinot Noir is really hit or miss. So sometimes it'll be like, oh my God, this is so good. And then other times it'll be like, it's like somebody just pissed in my mouth.
I've been hitting up the Flag Hill Winery a bit because we've done a couple of tours recently, and they actually do wine smoothies if you do the tour. Oh, bruh! I was
so what is it? It sounds like a blended sangria.
Yeah,
a blended ice sangria.
Yeah, it's literally like a fruit smoothie, but made with wine. Yeah. Yeah. They're actually legit.
That sounds criminal.
It's almost like you're pretending to be healthy, but failing real hard.
Failing, but in the most elegant way.
Yes, because it's kind of the start of the season. My girl saw eggnog in the store, and she was like, oh, I'm grabbing eggnog, right?
Already?
And when we went to the Dominican, we brought back Macorix spiced rum, their Rebel spiced rum.
Fantastic.
Oh my goodness. It's amazing. So one of the big ice cubes, the big ones like this big, some of the Rebel spiced rum, eggnog, and then fresh grated nutmeg on top.
Fresh grated nutmeg. You couldn't just, you had to actually grate it yourself. You were like, everything that counts in life takes a little effort. I could just see you with the grit on it. This is how I live.
We can talk about
we could talk about the fact that the president might be impeached.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess it's possible.
It's not possible.
Well, let's talk.
The Republicans would have to turn against him in the Senate.
Yeah. Well, they've already said that they're gonna try to stonewall any attempt for the House to push forward an impeachment.
Yep.
Which I don't know how they can do that if it's an illegal activity.
Mitch McConnell has all the ways. That's all I'm going to say. He has every single way of doing everything. Like, I feel like that man is he is Senator Palpatine. In our crumbling republic.
Crumbling republic.
Truck Nuts is going to be president for 8 years, and we're just going to have to deal
really?
with this.
You think he's going to get reelected?
Who the fuck's going to win? Biden? For fuck's sake. There's no way. Elizabeth Warren, it's going to be Hillary Part 2. Bernie is too left. I just think that, and he's too curmudgeonly and he's too vague.
Yeah.
All these other to judge. I like him, but he's too low profile. I don't think he's going to break out of the pack. Cory Booker's bankrupt. He's not going to make anything happen. And he's a little too touchy-feely, I think, for the nation. I think this nation is we're pretty much, borderline murderers, all of us. So
Beto's not going to make it.
You just got to win through that. He's done. He's done in a month. He's done in a month. I'm calling it now. He's
what's her name? Klobuchar?
Klobuchar?
Yeah.
I don't think she's going to.
No, she does not have the steam for it.
Kristen Gillibrand's already gone. I thought Gillibrand was going to hang on longer. Tulsi Gabbard will hang on for a while. Yang is an interesting dude.
Yang is an interesting dude, specifically because he talked about different ways to actually pay for that, what he was calling the freedom dividend.
Yeah,
$1,000 a month for everybody.
Yeah.
The problem that I see with that is $1,000 a month to everybody sounds to me like you're just pushing inflation.
Yeah, we like printing money. Yeah, it's the same, right? I mean, you're just throwing it out there. Everything will just, milk will be $400.
Yeah, he explained how it's supposedly paid for by reducing this and changing that, and doing things like. All right, so one of the things he brought up was, what do guys do when they become unemployed? They tend to get into legal trouble. They tend to sit at home, play video games, get drunk, do drugs, that kind of thing.
Holy shit. Boy, I missed the boat when I was unemployed. Boy,
apparently
I stewed in depression and put out 6,000 resumes. I was working every single day. I was doing freelance, trying to make a buck or two, but I had a mortgage to pay at the time. Anyway, sorry.
As you do, as a grown-ass man. But so what I was
still a man-child, but
so what he was saying was those people tend to do things that are self-destructive, and then you end up having to pay for these programs because they're unemployed.
Yes.
That become more expensive because now you're treating alcoholism, or you're treating the health problems that come along with that.
Problems that are bigger sponges on your economy. Yeah.
Right. So if you don't have to pay for those things because you're paying them $1,000 a month already to prevent those kinds of problems from developing, then you're actually paying less by paying people $1,000 a month ahead of time. And that was just one of the examples that he said is how you end up paying for it.
Same model with pre-K, right? Preschool like that whole idea that kids are far more successful when they go into preschool at around age 4. Before kindergarten. They have a higher likelihood of securing a good job. They're better social skills. They're more disciplined, like all of these things. And what happens, it was the same exact thing. as adults, you're lessening the burden on society by putting more up front. How many times is that always the answer, right? Put more in up front. Put more in up front and yield the benefits later, right?
Yep.
Little bit like the gun discussion that we had. It's the same exact thing. Put in education at the front, yield the benefits later on. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying necessarily money, but you know what I mean? Like put effort, resources, money, whatever it is, up front, yield the benefit later. Anytime you're being reactionary to whatever the problem, that's a lose situation because
it's definitely more costly. Yeah,
exactly.
And it's the same thing in the business world too. They always tell you that you want to be in a preventative mode. You want to be
proactive.
You want to be proactive. And they actually treat healthcare like that in like the UK.
Exactly.
Is they actually focus far more on teaching people how to lead a healthier lifestyle as opposed to treating these horrific diseases that come about because of not taking care of yourself because you couldn't afford to.
Great example of reactive versus proactive, right?
Yeah.
Look at our society in the pharmaceuticals industry, right? They benefit from the reactive, right? They're all like, go ahead and smoke all that and we'll treat your cancer while it takes you 10 years to die. Like that. But like if you don't fucking smoke or vape, like it still sounds weird to me when people say I'm vaping or whatever. Like the people are vaping, and I'm like, it sounds like something like that in Buck Rogers they do with some weird looking orb. They would have like an orb and they would just be touching it and like getting all off on it or whatever. Oh no, that's that movie Sleeper by Woody Allen. It's like, it's just like
I'm like, this sounds real or it sounds real orgy.
Right.
It sounds real orgy-ish.
That's very much.
What are you doing? We're gonna vape. We're gonna vape. We're vaping.
Vaping. It sounds like either it's a sixth grader sniffing glue or it's like something out of like a utopian society euphoric agent. You know what I mean? Like they have this, I'm vaping. I'm becoming one with my inner 12 chakras and whatnot. And then be like, all right, good for you.
No. There is one thing I did want to address head on because Massachusetts decided, Massachusetts decided that they were going to do a 4-month ban on all vaping products, right? That they have yet to vote on. But they ordered Massachusetts State Police to go shut down vape shops today. So now you have ordered your police force to interfere with the fucking with the businesses of your constituents without due process because the vote hasn't occurred yet.
Yeah, just so we're both clear, I am so not cool with that. Like in any way, shape, or form. And I can't even think of a person that I know that would be cool with that. Like I know some pretty lefty weirdos, and I gotta say, all of my most left friends would not be even remotely okay with that. Maybe I know more libertarians than
but isn't even a left versus right thing. This is you're violating due process.
State.
Yeah,
this is a police state.
The problem I have with
fascism.
What I'm really hoping for is that no matter how that vote comes down, that people sue the fuck out of Massachusetts for this.
Yeah, man, I agree. And something else, I was gonna say forget it. Ting.
I need another drink.
Somewhere there was a tenuous thought that was connected to what you were saying, and it was pretty good. I felt like it was enough quality for it to dance on my tongue to do a little bit of a.
Was it doing a salsa?
La, la, la. I wouldn't say a salsa, but some sort of like pirouette. Like it was just right there, and then it decided to just jump right back down and not make itself known. There was something involving. I'm trying to think of like why the fuck I was going to comment or what the fuck I was going to say. I'm dead to the world right now. Look, let's put it this way. This is what I was going to say. The pirouette has returned. I don't know. That was like a music box dancer on my tongue.
Are you okay?
Tiny dancer on my tongue.
Hold me closer,
time. All right. So what I was going to say, oh God, did I lose it again? No, I didn't.
Oh my God.
I lost it again. Wait, it's there. I was talking about Massachusetts and fascism. The point being, if people want to kill themselves vaping, let them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's not the government's job to protect people from bad decisions.
No, it's not.
It's not, and it's I don't want to pay for their bad decisions. Like I don't want to. I don't know why we would need the government to intervene here. Is my point. People have been smoking, and we know that they put addictive agents within cigarettes so that people will continue smoking for their entire lives and they will die a horrible death of lung cancer. But that's people's rights, right?
Jay,
they're not
480,000 deaths a year attributed to smoking.
Okay. And yet it's legal.
Totally legal.
And vaping,
no,
it's like
no problem at all.
Die.
I think it's up to 9 now, but literally in every case, the CDC and the FDA showed that it was directly linked
to other substances being put in, right? No,
to black market THC cartridges.
Exactly.
With vitamin E acetate in it, which is used as a cutting agent for the marijuana syrup, like essentially a THC syrup. Okay, so they render it down.
I get it. Yeah.
Right. And just like any good drug dealer, you want to cut your product for additional profit, right? Yeah. It's the same reason you put baby formula and fucking powdered heroin. You want to increase your profits by cutting your product. So that's what they're doing, but they're doing it with this vitamin E acetate, which if you think, oh, it's vitamin E, it's good for your skin, it's used in cosmetics. Right. But when you fucking heat it to the temperature of vaporization, it coats your lungs and does fucking damage to them. You're essentially deep frying fucking small cells in your lungs while you're doing it. It's no
Flintstone vitamins.
Yeah.
You're basically you're inhaling Flintstone vitamins and they're just coating so you got Bam Bam and Pebbles all up in here.
Yeah.
Up in here. And they're just bam, bam. Bam, bam. Yeah.
Bam, bam.
Bam, bam.
Oh, wow. That made an amazing noise. Like the glass on your beard.
Still legal. Probably the reason I'll be dead in 10 years. But fine. My choice, not the government's choice. This is the United States. People want to vape, let them vape. If they want to taste the cool grape fume that just, let them glorify the god of weird exhaust. But man, I tell you, I have no place for it in my life. I think that it's great that other people have found home there. If it's maybe they'll live longer doing that than they would have smoking.
Well, absolutely. And really, the number of people that have been, the only reason I care is because I know multiple people that have specifically been able to quit smoking that would not have been able to otherwise with other methods, because not only are you delivering a measurable dose of nicotine, you're also satisfying that oral fixation, that habit of like moving things to your face and breathing deep and all kinds of things like that. It treats all of the aspects that
and lowers your
are
risk
a problem.
Of dying.
Yeah, that are the problem of smoking. And
what the fuck are people banning it for?
Massachusetts alone gets $600 million a year from big tobacco due to what's called the master settlement.
Oh my Dre. Oh my Dre. Are you serious?
There's this thing called the master settlement that basically big tobacco was found to be at fault for all these people that have contracted cancer from using their products, right? So what they essentially have to do is pay this amount to each state every year, and it's supposedly to treat people that are afflicted with cancer, emphysema, whatever, from smoking. But those funds are obviously used for whatever the fuck the states want to use them for. It's essentially a gigantic guaranteed slush fund that they get from Big Tobacco every year. Now, it's now down 200 million since vaping has caught on. Apparently, it was closer to 800 million just from Massachusetts alone before, but now it's down to 600 million.
Follow the money every time.
So, essentially, what's happening is Big Tobacco is like, we're not getting the profits that we used to be getting because so many people are switching over to vaping. We don't have the biggest market share because
your percentage is going to drop, basically.
Yeah, Juul is owned by Philip Morris, and they're such a small part of the vaping market. Right. So all these profits that are going to everybody else, Big Tobacco is perfectly okay with them saying all of these sicknesses and deaths are coming from vaping. We need heavy regulation on this. Let's stop right now. We'll put a ban on everything, and then we'll charge $100,000 per product to get the proper licensing through the federal government.
Savvy as fuck.
And the best part, Massachusetts is one of the top 5 receivers of the master settlement. Guess what?
No, right.
Guess what other states are banning fucking vaping?
All of
the
those,
top receivers from the mass settlement.
Unbelievable.
From tobacco.
Follow the money.
I need to pause for a second because I need to go get myself another drink. We're going to need to edit this out in post. Yeah, you are real empty. All right, so we will pause and I'll be back here.
We're going to pause so I can pass out. I'm trademarking this shit.
Trademark beard scrape.
This is going to be the new Wilhelm scream in movies. Do you know what the Wilhelm is? Have I ever told you?
I do. As a matter of fact, I wanted to make that.
I know that you don't know.
I'm sure there is. I wanted to make a gamer tag that was Wilhelm scream. Because I feel like anybody that did get it, I would probably be friends with.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that person's probably all right. This is why you all paid the big money to see this right here. Drunk 40-something odd-year-old guy talking politics with his old buddy.
What do you got there?
As in, like, friend of a long time, not old as in, because look at him, he's 27 at most.
I'm a very old man as well.
You may feel old, Mr. Shattered Knees, but I'll tell you right now, fine as fuck.
Oh, you're too kind.
Whatever. Don't ever tell anybody I'm kind. I got an image to uphold, kid. All right. So
who is this?
Where were we?
Who is this Greta? Who's this Greta Thunberg kid? Who is she? The fuck is?
All right. So she's an autistic Australian teenager.
She's Australian?
I thought so. Yeah,
I don't know.
I was under the impression that she was Australian. I think that everything that I say in this podcast should be fact-checked within an inch of its life.
Everything should have citation needed right underneath it.
No, you know what it is? Everything that I do, and I almost did that too, right? When I was editing, I almost started like throwing it, and I was like, this is too much work. But everything I do is me throwing at a dartboard blindfolded, but having heard roughly where the bullseye was. So I'm like, and a lot of times it's Thunberg seems like oh God, have you seen the meme with the Kill Bill siren?
No.
Have you seen that? Oh my
No,
God.
I haven't.
She saw Trump at the climate summit. So he had showed up right around the time that she delivered her very impassioned speech for global leaders, which basically said, you're doing dick plus shit and everyone's going to die. Thanks very much for not caring about my generation or really anybody but yourselves. Like, she kind of just put it out there in plain speak, which is kind of great. But anyway, because it comes from a generation of kids who, they've been raised on, oh my God, they've been raised on like Harry Potter and the Hunger Games and everything else. They are fed up.
99% of the scientific community, reputable sources, agrees that climate change is a thing.
True.
Who and why? Who are these people that are like, that's a hoax? It's based on faulty fucking information. And why would you want to try to follow that line of thought? Why would you look at polar ice caps melting, sea levels rising, and the average temperature of our fucking planet raising every single year and go, I don't believe
okay. Why are those 5-7 states, right? The ones that are currently chasing down vaping because it's cutting into their profits from the tobacco industry. It's cutting into their slush funds, right? Follow the fucking money always, right? Greed. I am not doing Gordon Gekko right now. Greed is not good. Greed, though, is the primary motive behind most human decision making. Self-preservation, self-enhancement, family preservation, money. People are in it to win it for themselves. And I feel like corporations that are making tremendous amounts of money doing things that lead to climate adverse situation are these people don't care. They don't care. Either they know they're going to die and they don't care about the science, or they have convinced themselves that the science is wrong. And then there's a huge swath of the population who fall under this sort of gaslighting that is just the scientific community is wrong. They're arrogant. They're elitists. They're trying to tell you how to feel about things, and you shouldn't believe that because they're intellectuals, and you can't buy into what they're selling.
There's another huge problem in this country, and I think it started around the time that Bush Jr. got in office, where it was this all of a sudden, if you're too smart, then you're somehow planning things against the average person. That if
you are in part of a large conspiracy to hold down the everyman.
Right.
Who can't afford your level of education.
And if you're a dumb cowboy, then you're more trustworthy, because everyone forgets that George Bush
did this first.
He
was the stepping stone.
That was a cultivated look.
It 100% was. He was a smart fucking guy.
He graduated from Yale.
He went to Phillips.
Yeah, he grew up in New England, and all of a sudden was talking with a Southern cowboy accent and didn't know dick about shit. And all of a sudden, but it was perfectly okay, because that means he was totally trustworthy, because you can't be dumb and lying to people at the same time. That doesn't make sense. He's not smart enough to be lying to me. Where the fuck did this come from? Yeah. Where the fuck did that came from?
Does that sound familiar?
So someone said, okay, that was a cultivated decision. That was the end goal. That was the impression that we wanted to leave on the American public.
Yeah.
So, At what point do we go, you know what? If you're a scientist that studies
you're part of a global conspiracy,
that studies climate change, now you're part of the fucking Illuminati and you're trying to pull the wool over our eyes. When the fuck did that become a thing? Like, look, I'm not saying that everything that Canada does is right, but when Canada fucking elects people into a position, they're fucking
qualified.
They're whoever's in charge of their. All right, now I'm speaking.
Their Corona.
I've had too many drinks and I can't think of words now. The person who's in charge of their environmental shit has like a Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, right.
Fucking.
Right. He's not
fucking
the guy,
environmental science.
He's not the guy that tried to literally shut down the EPA and fought them on regulation.
Yeah.
Instead, we're like, let's get that guy. Let's get the guy that hates
totally
the EPA and regulations, because clearly, whatever benefit there is, right? Whatever short-term benefit there is up front, coming back to the theme, short-term benefits up front, long-term reactive, oh wait, we can't react because we're all going to be dead. Our children are going to die.
And here's the thing.
No matter hellish.
Jason, anything that Trump could have done right over his entire fucking term was absolutely going to be nullified once you do something like hire the guy who wants to shut down the fucking EPA and make him the head of the EPA.
Yeah.
You can't tell people that you have fucking the best interest of Americans and the world at large, because you're arguably the most powerful person in the free world if you're the president of the United States.
Nowadays, arguable, but you are certainly right. It is arguable because
it's arguable.
One of the most, if not the most.
And I think it's arguable, but it's definitely within spitting distance for sure.
Exactly. And see, that's my point. Yeah. I'm following. I agree with you 100%. It's arguable, but let's be real. He is one of the most powerful people in the entire world. And he is making decisions based on Fox News. He's making decisions based on conservative talking points. He's making decisions based on where the money is being made right now in the short term, regardless of what could happen later on. So, fine. We'll be dead before it's bad enough. More than likely, we'll be dead. Probably.
Ocasio-Cortez says we got 12 years, bro.
Okay, and then there's the other side of the argument. But regardless, we'll be dead, but our kids won't be, man. Our kids who we love more than anything won't be. And
see, that's where things get real and things get scary.
In my life that I care about anymore. Like I've reached that point in my life where I've given up on my dreams. I've given up on my making any impact on my society or the world at large. I've thoroughly given up. And I'm at the point now where I'm just training my kids to enjoy life because it's a gift and to be happy. To be good to others because it feels better to be good, and to not take, and to just be interested and be curious and be creative and be thoughtful and whatever else. Knowing full well in my head, I've done very little myself to stop what's happened, that I failed, that Greta Thunberg is talking in part to me. She's speaking to me, too. She's speaking to our generation that hasn't stepped up enough to the plate to really combat what's happening. We haven't.
See, I take issue with that a lot.
Well, good for you. I'm glad you're doing things.
Here's the thing. I take issue with that because there's only so much that the individual can do. And
yes.
That's not just on a personal level, because yes, you've got lobbyists that have corporate interests at heart way more than they have the populace's interest at heart. But not only that, we're also one nation. No matter what we enact, we look.
Well, no,
China just had essentially their fucking economic revolution a couple of years ago.
Right.
Okay. So they went from literally farming with fucking sticks. And I don't care if that sounds racist in this super fucking like powder puff fucking world that we're living in right now. The bottom line is the amount of pollution that they put out has exploded like exponentially over the past literally fucking few years. And there's nothing
like within the past 20 years,
there's almost nothing that I can do either as an individual or the United States can do just as one nation to stop China from producing way more pollution than our entire nation.
That is so absolutely true. And there's something that corporations love is to put it on the individual.
Yeah, it's always what have you done to save the environment today? Are you carrying around your stainless steel straw and your fucking hydro flask and driving and fucking riding your bicycle to work? Hey, motherfucker, I'm also not dumping all kinds of chemicals into the rivers. And I also didn't build a dam that literally changed the rotation of the earth because it displaced so much fucking water. Thank you, China.
There's plenty to be angry about, without a doubt.
But here's what I want to know.
It's enormously.
How do we tackle that problem? How do we, unless you have
what we're doing.
Okay, no.
We don't do what we're doing. I mean, we don't just leave the table and say, fuck you all. We're going to continue to produce clean coal.
But that's what's happening, right? Like they just had the environmental summit where this Greta Thunberg went up in front of everyone and had this tear-filled, heartfelt fucking speech that literally I've only seen the visual of. I didn't even listen to it. I see a crying teenager and I'm like, nah, I don't care. Sorry. It's just, I'm a terrible person.
Why are you that way?
Look, maybe it's just haven't seen those goddamn Mockingbird movies or whatever the fuck it is.
Hunger Games.
Yeah, the Hunger Games.
That's what I was talking about earlier. You brought it back. Look at that.
Yeah, I brought it back because here's the thing. I listened to the audiobooks. First book, and I'm like, okay, cool. This will fill some time. Second book, I'm like, this is getting real weird. By the end of the third book, she was literally just fucking crying over which boy she wanted to I'm like, what in the fuck? And it's
it got sloppy.
It's a product. It's a product of our culture. But whatever. I hear a teenage girl crying, and I'm like, you know what? I got bigger problems. I'm not interested.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Okay.
Because it might be legit, but also like until it's
a teenager. Got it. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, teenage girls are literally teenage boys are also literally always crying about shit too.
I'm glad you wrote that in because
it's not gender. It's not gender specific. It's whatever your pronoun. Yeah, whatever your pronoun of choice is. Even if we're getting into that. As well. Yeah. You're at an age where hormones are dumping into your bloodstream and fucking with your brain. And you're always crying shit.
I can't get into the hormone, the pronoun discussion. I can't do it. I don't have the ability to quite understand it enough to feel comfortable with it. But I know enough about myself where I can say, I don't know enough about this. I don't understand it enough to really discuss it. That's where I differ from the boomers, where they just get angry and they say, no, you're wrong and you're fucking up everything and I hate you and you should go to hell and God is going to send you to the bottomless pits. And I'm
all of that shit aside, I'm not going to argue. Okay,
look, you're saying there's AC and DC and that's it, or no?
There's the science side of it where biologically biologically, there are two genders, but beyond that, I don't care what anyone wants to identify. The problem that I have with it is when you have people that are like, I identify as this, so now, specifically in regards to sports, I'm going to compete against people that are in that category, and I'm going to fucking destroy them. When you have men that are going, I identify as a woman.
Oh, and I'm going to be in an MMA competition.
Yeah, and I'm going to compete in the MMA, wrestling, powerlifting. Look,
people are exploiting that. They're exploiting the They're exploiting the science. I mean, they're exploiting the facts of the matter that those that are born male with male traits. God, I'm so old, but I don't know how to talk about this subject. But
people that are born biologically male, but
biologically male. Yeah. See, I need you to be the brain here, because my brain and mouth, not just because of this, but because I am dumb as a fucking bag of hammers. I just can't I can't talk about gender other than as a cisgender male does. This is all I know. Sorry, I mean sorry. I genuinely mean it. I'm not just saying oh, sorry. No, I mean it. I mean it. I want to understand I want to understand how people are, and I will continue to think about this question, but my brain can't quite handle it. So I have a tendency to just shut up about it because I struggle with it the way that probably my parents did with people of different religions or different ethnic backgrounds, and then their grandparents probably did with people of different races. I mean,
but that's kind of an enlightened point of view in and of itself, right? To know that you're not a part of this argument, that essentially you don't have a dog in this fight and you don't understand the parameters of it. So you're just going to step back instead of being that person's
being a judgmental dick. Right.
No, this is the way it was. Yeah. And this is the way it's going to fucking be.
Because I can't decide what the world is going to be, and I don't want to. What I want to do is I want to equip my children, who are going to die when they're in their 30s, apparently. But whatever. I mean, I'm going to.
Are you talking about climate change again?
Yeah.
The oceans are going to come up. It's going to be water world. It'll be all right.
As long as there's a Gene Triplehorn for every cis male gender guy,
yeah,
we be fine.
Just give them good boats.
No, I think that there's a possibility that we may nuke ourselves out of existence still. I think that that's a genuine possibility.
That's been a possibility since we invented nuclear weapons.
Of course it is. So why would it cease to be? If anything, it becomes increasingly more likely as time goes on, until people like Putin die, until people like Trump die, until people like Kim Jong-il, who out of all of these people, like that guy,
Il died.
Yeah, right, Il's died. He's dead.
Yeah, now, see, I disagree with that because I feel like as much as we talk about your loose cannons, your Kim Jong-uns and stuff like that, the average human wants to maintain a level of what do you call it? Their
equilibrium.
No.
Safety, life.
Yeah. A standard of living. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, they want to maintain a fucking. Wow, I'm real drunk right now. They want to maintain a certain level of a standard of living, and everyone wants to maintain that level of that standard of living. Nobody wants to go back to a date where we don't have the fucking internet. Nobody wants to go back and
nobody except for totalitarian governments that want to control everything that their population thinks or feels. They want.
Hey, again, China's fucking. Yeah, you can go to the websites we tell you can. fuck you. But nobody wants
Putin is not far from China,
and there's
just so we're clear.
There's a huge population on this earth that don't have clean water, but those of us that do have clean water, we don't want to go back to a point where we don't have clean water.
But so we will be there. Oh, anyway. All right.
Yeah, right. Eventually. But like nobody wants to go backward and destroy the status quo that we have. You've got people that want to milk the system for everything that it's worth and everything like that. That's a totally different animal, but nobody wants to give up fucking smartphones and the McRib and hot showers and fucking internet porn. Nobody wants to give that shit up. So whenever someone's like, we should fucking nuke China because they're polluting everything, everyone's like, no, pump your fucking brakes, bruh. Take a moment. Yes, China's a problem right now because they're not listening to the global community when they say, hey, stop pumping all kinds of fucking garbage into the environment.
Yeah.
But like you said, stepping away from the table is absolutely not the answer. But we're not going to there has to be some sort of global authority that we're all held accountable to. And when we're one of the most powerful nations, look, you're giving me crazy looks, but the UN was created specifically for that. And what do? We go, oh, UN sanctions? Nice. Try to fucking try to enforce that on us. We spend more on defense. We spend more on defense than the next 10 nations combined, bitch. Go on ahead and tell me I can't do what the fuck I want. That's the problem.
Everything you said is gospel. I mean, that is 100% accurate. And that is how I feel about it as well. I think that we have, as always, I love this theme for the show where it regardless of the topic that we tackle in this particular episode, it is all, or this conversation, I should say, is it always comes back to proactive versus reactive, in the sense of profit at the forefront of things versus something more sustainable and yielding a larger benefit in the future. Nobody cares about the future, and I think that that's true. I think that that's the case. And you talked a lot about the people. I feel like you were very much of the population when you were speaking about like nobody wants, and I think you're right. I think that the population doesn't, but I think that the people who are in power, who we've either put in power, or the people who have seized power or whatever else, are interested only in power and in self-interest in the short term. That is somehow led to them becoming powerful, like that their interests are so strong, or somehow that they are so disciplined in their pursuit of the power, of the wealth, of whatever it is, that the rest who don't agree suffer.
Well, that's endemic of a democratic republic, right? Our government is a democratic republic. We put people in power, but we only have so much control over what they will do, because the idea is that they will do what their constituents want them to do. But it's
theoretically, the checks and balances built into the system would allow the populace to control what happens, right? That's theoretically what happens. That's why things like when you mentioned last week about term limits and stuff like that need to be imposed, because the will of the people cannot be imposed if you just keep voting in by habit the same people. Oh, he's not that bad. I'm not going to give this other person a chance because I haven't read up on the issues and I'm not familiar with this new name. Well, it's just recognizable and it's easy, and you've got other shit to think about because there's the here and now. So you're not thinking about later. You're not thinking about whatever.
Well, the design of that was created at a time where things didn't really change that fast, right? So the idea specifically was to slow down the process, and it was to provide stability to the system so that there was checks and balances, but there was also, if you had, for whatever reason, a group of people that were hot-headed and wanted to do things completely differently, that you had this buffer zone that said, whoa, let's see how this plays out and see if we really want to turn our entire economy over to Bitcoin.
Yeah, right.
Right.
No, that's fair. That's fair. That is fair. And that's very complex. I grant you this. But at the same time,
it's still 2 terms for a senator doesn't seem outside the realm of what we should probably be doing.
Yes.
Again, when it got to the point where you had that Congressman, what was it, Byrd, who was there for like damn near 90 fucking years.
No, Strom Thurmond.
Strom Thurmond.
That was a different situation entirely.
Which one was the one that used to vote for the KKK all the time?
Yeah, Strom Thurmond.
Yeah, okay, Strom Thurmond. And it's like, we had him around until the fucking early 2000s?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, come on. Okay, there's a difference between, the cooling plate that they've been talking about on the fucking news lately, and, now we're hindering progress. And also,
you're absolutely right.
The world changes so much faster now because of the rapid dissemination of information. It's faster than it's ever been, and it's only getting faster, especially when you talk about, I believe there's going to be, and here we're going to jump into a totally different topic. I think there's going to be a culmination of the human species with AI. I think there's going to have to be a way in which we integrate with artificial intelligence, or we'll cease to be.
Yeah.
Because AI is fucking scary, bro.
Well, it's profoundly fascinating to me that sort of supposes that whatever we are could be preserved, that the consciousness of us could be distilled and somehow preserved in some sort of other means than a physical body,
in a digital form.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I mean.
Yo, that's another thing that came out today.
Consciousness.
Okay, so for one, Elon Musk has been working on that already because he's been talking about the problem. The main hurdle between humans and technology right now is an interface problem, because right now the transfer of information between me and my electronics is through a keyboard, a touchpad, whatever, right? And until that human to digital interface becomes way faster, then we'll be limited with what we can do with technology. So he's currently working on that interface problem with essentially hooking electrodes to human brains and making it so that thought transfers at the speed of digital.
Yeah.
Right. So it just came out today that Facebook has spent, I forget how many fucking billions of dollars. I just heard about it today. Facebook has spent something like $600 billion towards the interface between humans and social media. And the hope is that they specifically stated as the hope was that the humans will be able to interact with Facebook with their minds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm like, what a fucking stupid use of an incredible technology. We want you to be able to bullshit with your stupid friends faster than ever before. Not we want you to have enlightened consciousness.
But they're breaking down physical barriers, which I think is admirable. I mean, my sisters live in Texas, and there's nothing more that I want than to have a really close relationship with them that is instant. That is I'm thinking about my sisters and I want to talk to them and be able to do so. And the idea that my brain could start to be trained in such a way that it would be able to talk with them through social media or whatever means it is, at the end of the day, whatever's monetized out of it, right? And I'm get my fucking brain waves will be inundated with ads and whatever else. But I like the idea of being able to be at work and think of my sister and be able to instantly sort of communicate with her without having to be and then be able to interface with my work and be able to, it could be such a game changer once you remove the input device, and the input device is strictly impulse and thought, and that's extraordinary. But what I think we're mistaking is that we are somehow the sum of our electric current, that we are somehow our memories, everything. I mean, maybe I'm not imaginative enough, but in my mind, literally in my mind, I feel as though we are too great a sum of experience to quantify, or maybe we're not. Maybe we can be captured and contained and relayed, but we end, and we will end. And there's no way to preserve ourselves in perpetuity. We will die, our bodies will stop. And regardless of what algorithms carry us forward, we won't be carried forward.
But conversely, as humans, we're a hunk of meat full of electrical impulses.
I am a meat popsicle.
Yeah. So, if you could capture the history, right? The memories, the experiences, and the tendencies of those electrical impulses.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, you're just removing the meat from the equation, right?
Well,
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
No. I think that's the sort of interesting play space that people find themselves in, is that they think that we could be reduced to the removal of the meat popsicle. And I think that we don't know. Obviously, we don't know, because we're not even at the threshold of that level of thinking. Or maybe we are. Maybe we're
no,
close,
we absolutely are. Look,
but I don't feel as though a continued consciousness.
So Facebook to buy startup that lets humans control computers with their brains.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
it still originates within a living, breathing organism.
It's called Control Labs. The proposed acquisition of Control Labs, a 4-year-old company developing software and a bracelet that measures neuron activity in a subject's arm, is believed to be between $500 million and $1 billion, according to published reports. So, all right, maybe I heard that their plan was to invest $500 billion to further develop the interface between humans and electronics. Now, once you can capture those electronic impulses as a separate entity, have you not captured what makes that person who they are?
No.
I mean, if you just completely distill
it
down,
you're in the argument of whether or not there is existence of a soul, or whether every decision we make can be boiled down to an algorithm of some sort. right? I mean, is everything that
to chemical impulses and things like that. So, I mean, biology certainly takes a huge role in our decision making because, again, we talked about hormones. I mean, what was your decision making based upon? What were all of your decisions predicated upon when you had all kinds of chemicals being dumped into your brain by your body?
Modern. I mean, I don't,
exactly.
I don't.
So what happens to humans when you take essentially?
What are you going to pick and choose? You're going to pick and choose the right time.
What happens to humans when you take a snapshot of their brain and digitize it and remove the chemical aspect of it? What happens when you remove the biology from someone's persona? Are they then just a sum of their experiences?
Well, they're not real. They become
what's real?
Something. Well, Jesus. Take the blue pill, the red pill. I mean, we don't know. Everything is subjective. All of our the difficulty here is that literally everything that we experience is in the past. We don't have an ability to experience anything other than what's in the past because everything that we do is memory. So everything that we have done is either immediate memory or distant memory or whatever memory, but it is memory. It is through memory that we gain experience. Is the experience that we gain transferable? Is the way that we react to our experience transferable? And if it is transferable, are we still us? Or are we a proxy of us?
I think
just one more question. What happens when there's an amalgamation of this? So, right, it's not just you, Dan, or me, Jason, or Abby, or Carmen, or Diego, or Sebastian, or Justin, or Lily, but it's all of us flowing into one central thing. I mean,
now that becomes instantaneous democracy, does it not?
Well, I mean, I don't know what it is. I mean, I don't know how to I don't even know how to, usually we're talking about haunted vans at this point. So now we're talking about the amalgamation of human experience, intuition, thought as an electrical digital input into a higher hive mind. Jesus.
Well, because
that is just fascinating.
If there is this event horizon, Jesus, that'll be the end of.
We don't stop working. We're electrical.
Are we not? Are we walking Faraday cages though? Is your meat shield protecting your electrical impulses?
Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I don't know what the.
I gotta imagine an EMP would affect some people. It's certainly going to affect anybody that's got any kind of augmentation. If you have anybody
that's like part robots, right?
Yeah, if you have a pacemaker,
right? Holy shit! Yeah, that would. Ooh,
if you have a pacemaker, you're technically a cyborg.
Technically. Oh, that's brutal. That's brutal to even think about. Oh God.
Did you ever read the book? I think it's called. Is it 9 Seconds After?
I haven't read it.
Bruh, You got to read.
Don't even, bro.
Bro, you got to read.
Bro, you assume way too much about me. Like I'm somehow have enough time to read, or that I somehow don't just watch cooking shows when I have free time.
So I read a book called 1 Second After. It's a 2009 novel by William Forstchen. The novel deals with an unexpected electromagnetic pulse attack on the United States as it affects the people living in and around the small American town of Black Mountain, North Carolina. And it specifically, what it talks about, but what it specifically talks about is the immediate, medium term, and long term effects that it had on people from that area. So obviously, if you had a pacemaker or anything that you needed, that you relied on, or say you were in the hospital and you want a breathing machine or something like that, anything that's not in a Faraday cage and you were reliant upon an external electrical device to keep you alive, or internal in the case of a pacemaker, those people died instantaneously. But it also talked about how insulin production shut down. And refrigeration wasn't a thing. So within 30 to 60 days, if you had diabetes, you were fucking dead.
That's accurate. Wow. It's crazy.
And then it talked about because now you didn't have access to petroleum products for farming and things like that. You within the first year, you had to really focus on what do you call it with the farming? That's
agrarian.
The
agriculture.
The farming that's God damn, dude. I think we've gone too far. Sustainable agriculture. Anything that wasn't sustainable agriculture. Anything that's not sustainable agriculture, whereas in like you're doing crop rotation and shit like that to renitrify the soil and everything.
Sure.
If you weren't doing that within the first year and already have some of it already in place, then you were going to deal with famine and all kinds of shit like that.
Oh yeah.
So you were talking about waves of death.
Absolutely.
Essentially, where all of the weaknesses of society were cut away. And you were returned.
Not dissimilar from nuclear winter. I mean, it's not terribly dissimilar. I mean, what's nice about it is you don't get the radiation sickness.
Yeah.
You don't get the radiation sickness. You don't get the nuclear winter aspect of it. You don't get the long-term breakdown of all of society. You don't get the intense, after nuclear winter, the intense UV cancers that would happen after the fact.
Is that an issue with nuclear winter? UV cancers? Is it a breakdown of the? Is it a breakdown of the
ozone
and
everything else? Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
I
intense UV
that aspect of it.
Yeah. There's all these different. It's an entire spectrum of horror that happens after nuclear war, and the assumption is that by midway through that spectrum, we've returned to the Middle Ages. Our language is broken down through the generational transfer. We have no way to educate kids effectively. People will still fuck and still have children. A lot of them will be stillborn. A lot of them will be mutated. A lot of them will be. It's a horrific forecast compared to an EMP. An EMP would be a much more merciful event.
I urge you to read or at least fucking listen to the ebook of this. Merciful is not at all what I would call what we would face in that situation.
Like that, comparatively to a nuclear devastation, because a lot of power gets knocked. Obviously, power and all means of power and usage get knocked out by nuclear annihilation as well, depending on how widespread it is.
Hey, have you heard of the theory that due to a mass coronal ejection, that essentially advancement of the human species has been reset multiple times?
Yep.
So
heard that. I don't.
I was reading this thing about Robert Schoch, who's an Egyptologist, right? And he did these studies of the Sphinx. And one of the first things that you notice if you actually look at like a head-on picture of the Sphinx is that the head seems way fucking smaller than it's supposed to be. And Robert Schoch, before he became an Egyptologist, was he studied weather patterns and wear patterns on rock due to precipitation. And one of the first thing he noticed was the head is way fucking smaller than it's supposed to be. But another thing that he noticed is once he got up close to the Sphinx was, holy shit, there's wear patterns all over the Sphinx that are consistent with, one, a much wetter region, and two, a historic account of wetter seasons for nearly 10,000 years longer than what we thought the Sphinx was around. So it's much, much older than the surrounding pyramids and much, much older than we thought it was. And his theory is that essentially humans had reached a level of civilization that was essentially erased by what he believes was a mass coronal ejection. Because even in recorded history, there was a time where we had a smaller mass coronal ejection that essentially wiped out all of the telegraphing services at the time, because telegraph was all the technology that we had at the time. And it fried all the wires. Fried
everything. Yep. I do recall that. Yeah.
So that's been, it's happened within recordable history.
Do you ever wish a little bit, just that like it happens and you don't have any more debts?
I would almost wish for something like a plague, but one that just didn't affect people that I love.
Oh, Jesus. That's so specific.
It's super fucking dark. It really is. And it's terrible. And I feel bad about it every time it comes up. But really, so many of the problems that we face as a society really boil down to overpopulation of our planet. The population of our planet has fucking exploded.
Man.
And really, the shortage of resources and energy and food and everything like that.
Yeah, I can't ride with you in that boat. I know.
You really think this ball of mud was fucking supposed to support 7+ billion people?
Virus. I mean, humans are a virus on this planet. I think there's no question. We will either make the planet sick and its immune system will fight us off, or we will become so dominant that we kill ourselves, right? But I do see us as a virus on the planet. That's how I've often viewed us.
How is that any different than me saying, man, we need a new plague? Or for an old one to come back, which essentially we're fucking pushing with the anti-vaxxers.
You're talking about self-preservation, not you, but I mean the all of us. And I'm speaking more generically about how I view us as a race, as a species. Sorry, that's more the word.
As a collective organism.
As a collective organism, that's much better way to put it. I don't think that we have the ability to really govern over our more primal sort of design, and we are what we are. We will fuck and create and die, and what we have is awareness and self-consciousness to make it seem important, but ultimately it isn't, and it is pretty straight up meaningless.
Now, to call back on it, what if we started taking the collective human consciousness and digitizing it?
Exactly. Right. Then it
which
becomes,
would ultimately need less resources.
Exactly. And then it becomes distilled. And it becomes probably, I would assume, more clinical and less about the individual, more about a collective. And it becomes a totally different,
because you're taking so much of the biology out of the equation.
We become the Borg.
Yeah, because you're taking so much of the biology out of the equation. You're taking the chemistry, the hormones dumped into the mind, and the fear of death. I mean, how much of the human decision-making process is predicated upon the fear of death alone, and trying to essentially leave some kind of legacy, or
exactly that piece,
right?
That piece.
But that's part of the reason that we have children and we teach them.
Exactly. It's tied to in part our fear of death, but it's more so tied to the preservation of a legacy, or the preservation of us. The fear of us ending, certainly the death piece of it, is a huge, huge part of it, right? Mm-hmm. But then this whole sense of like continuance, this whole sense of it has to keep going, this drive to keep going. Well, first of all, we're put here like a virus to multiply. And depending on who you are, you look at it either as it's so funny because you could look at religion as a first blush, like a first try at monitoring this and sort of controlling this, right? Like you look at it and be like, okay, these are the rules, and this is the shit, and this is how it goes, and this is whatever. It's almost like they saw we're a virus and you need rules around this virus. But then, of course, religion, and then there's another religion, then you got to multiply this side versus this side.
Also, so it's been translated 7 times.
Oh, and then it just gets sloppy. That gets sloppy and it falls apart, which is like programming. Which is why programmers love to draw these analogies, right? They love to draw these analogies between what they're writing, their little code in their fucking little basements, right? When they're just
it even extends beyond that, because there's actually digital decay with our current technology.
God. Yes.
It's
not permanent. It's not permanent by any stretch.
It's super rare, but I've actually heard of programmers talking about digital decay as essentially a much slower form of them disappearing from the planet. It goes back to the fear of death thing, that
it loops absolutely right back. Why do you think that Steven Spielberg and Stanley Kubrick contributed? Steven Spielberg and Stanley Kubrick contributed on a great piece of artwork, which was called AI. And it's clunky and it's messy and it's sloppy, but it tackles a lot of what you and I are talking about. It really does. If you look at that film again, if you and I were to like set up a screencast and we were to commentary all the way through that, right? You would see
that's a good idea.
A lot of what you and I are talking about right now is mentioned, is touched upon in this film. It's two great artists trying to come to terms, and two artists who are at completely different ends of the aesthetic, as far as the filmmaking, as far as filmmaking goes. And I'm super drunk, so sorry, but I feel as though that's what they were trying to get at, is the same question that you and I are. Look, machines die. Digital dies. There's the decay. There is the deprecation of language, of logic, of everything. It may last longer than we last. It could become an amalgamation of all that we are, but ultimately all things end. We get swallowed by the sun. If we go off onto another planet or another system or wherever we go, if we're so lucky to make that departure from here as a collective, which you and I would not be a part of more than likely, and certainly not a conscious part of. I think even if in the best case scenario, right, we were replicated, we, as we understand us now, would be a replication of. It wouldn't be a continuation of.
No.
But we could find solace.
You know what's funny?
In the replication. But, sorry. Go ahead.
If you watch the original Star Trek, and I was never really into Star Trek, but one thing that I found incredibly interesting about the Star Trek universe is that anytime that they beamed someone from the ship down to a planet or beamed them back, yeah, they were destroying the old copy. They were essentially copying the individual and their responses and their impulses and everything like that. They were creating a new piece of meat with the same tendencies and memories and everything, so that essentially it was the same to everyone else around them, but they were destroying the original. It was more about the collective, about your contribution to the collective, right? Because it didn't matter.
Well, the Borg
that copy. Well, but, and they even had an episode about it. Right. They even had an episode about it where the original, like they beamed someone up, right? It created the new version of them, but the original, the beaming device, whatever they called it,
split them.
No, it didn't. So the mechanism was to create an exact copy where they needed it to be and to destroy the original. And it malfunctioned so that it didn't destroy the original. So that there were
I never saw that.
I didn't either. I just read an article about it, and I found it interesting because of the allegory of it. The whole your value is in what you are to the collective, to those around you. I feel what's far more important than my own enjoyment in what I have experienced and my individual experience is anything that I've been able to contribute to the world as a whole. Because the world as a whole, my children and everybody else's children, your children, is going to go on. Nothing is going to end with my existence. Therefore, what matters is what I've done to make the world a little bit of a better place. That's what's important. Yeah. That's what's important to me. And I feel like some of the things that I've accomplished in my life, I feel completely comfortable with the concept of my existence ending as long as the things that I have done have made some impact to make the world at least a little bit better. Or if I've taught my children enough for their impact to make the world even better. Man, we got real fucking hippie the last 5 minutes.
You know, I would rather be that.
I don't disagree.
Especially when you're like a bottle and a half deep.